Hello guys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Seb Talks Sports, sponsored by Hoopin and Luton, the place to go to for your favourite new and vintage jerseys and apparel from all things basketball. That intro music and podcast theme was created by All-Pro New York Giants running back, now music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Go and check him out on all of his social media platforms at Fourstone Running on Twitter and Instagram, and his music under David E. Wilson across all good music streaming services. He's free for business, so drop him a message if you want some beats for your podcast, adverts, commercial, absolutely anything you need. Before I get into this episode, I just want to say that if you're not already following Seb Talks Sports across all platforms, then please do. You can find me on Facebook, Seb Talks Sports, YouTube, Seb Talks Sports, Twitter at Seb Talks Sports, and Instagram, where I'm primarily active. Again, it's at Seb Talks Sports. Today, I've got another fantastic guest joining me on Seb Talks Sports, a Paralympic gold medalist and former world record holder who triumphed at the Paralympic Games in 2004 in Athens when taking home gold in the T46 800 metres, an accolade that would soon prove to be just one of many that he achieved across his incredibly prestigious athletics career. It's of course the brilliant Danny Crates. Enjoy. My guest today is a Paralympic gold medalist and former world record holder in the T46 800 metres, who won gold in Athens in front of millions watching around the globe. Just one of the many medals he won across a prestigious career. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Danny Crates to Seb Talks Sports. Danny, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, Seb. How are you?
Very, very good, thank you. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so I'd love to start right at the beginning. So as a man whose passion for sport and fitness is still very strong at the age of 48, continuing to play competitive rugby in your 40s within and against teams of non-amputee players, which is just incredible. What are your earliest memories of sport? And as a county rugby player in your youth, who was your sporting inspiration?
Yes, so my earliest, thanks for reminding me of my age as well. The run-outs on the rugby pitch are getting fewer and further between now. It's not a regular Saturday day for me. My earliest memories of sport were pretty much, I think, the same as 99% of people who've had the honour of being, being professional sports people, and it starts in school. So I was introduced to sport in primary school and had a love for it. My PE teachers at the time, Mr. Davis and Mr. Richards, Welsh PE teachers, because if you went to a primary school in the 80s, you had Welsh PE teachers. They were like part of the foundations. But they not only introduced me to the sports, but they then encouraged me for the ones that I enjoyed and showed some attribute to take it further. So they encouraged me to take my rugby and my athletics and go and join my local clubs. So Thurrock Harriers and Thurrock Rugby Club eventually. And it's always been the same. So all through my secondary school, it was my PE teachers as well that kind of nurtured me. And as with a lot of sports people, sitting down in maths and English wasn't easy for me. My attention was always out on the field. All my school reports said the same thing. If Danny could do his maths lesson outside, he would do a lot better. But the people that saw something in me were the PE staff. So they're the ones that encouraged me. So I then took it to club level. I ran for Thurrock Harriers from the age of 11 and also played rugby for Thurrock Rugby Club. And then when I was old enough, and I did an apprenticeship in school, and I gave up the athletics and then continued on with my rugby. And it was rugby really that was the thing for me, and became the sport that I really engaged with, and that took me to Essex and into county level.
Very, very cool. Okay, so in 1994, when you're a similar age to myself, your life, of course, changed forever. Very unfortunately, you're involved in a car accident where you lost your right arm, but you didn't let this dampen your spirit, of course. So how much of a challenge was it to come to terms with the reality of now only having one arm as a still very young man in his early 20s? And at what point did athletics become a new interest and viable career plan?
Yeah, so it's so the accident itself is, it happens, and you're then in a process which is being swept up and taken off to hospital, and then I had the operation. So the arm was pretty much cleanly off, or it wasn't cleanly off, it was ripped off in the accident. I carried it out of the car. That's my gory story. I actually picked the arm up because we were 10 foot down in the embankment, and I noticed there was an arm across my lap. I actually didn't know it was mine at first. The panic set in, and then it's almost like a surreal calmness when the passenger in my car said, "Don't look, it's yours." So I picked it up and then took it out of the car, and then luckily there was one house in the vicinity. It was on a road in a road in Australia that was in between two towns, and there was just one house, and they heard the crash, and the lady came out to my assistance. If it hadn't been for her, I probably wouldn't have made it, because she's A, the one that called the ambulance, and B, she then pinned me to the ground and held me down. So then I went off to the local hospital. They stabilized me. Then I got transferred to a major injuries hospital where the operation was done to fix it all up, really. And then the next 4 or 5 days in hospital in intensive care, I just process, really. You're in hospital, you don't really have to think, but it really starts when you come out of hospital, and it's when I couldn't fly home straight away. Of course, the toughest thing was my mum and dad, right? They get a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning saying their son's been involved in a serious car accident. And at the time I was being taken into theatre, so they don't get any information. Yeah. They just get told it's serious. And at that time, there's nothing they can do because it's 4 o'clock in the morning. They can't even book a flight back then because it's pre-internet. At least nowadays, you could start booking your flights straight away. So they just had to wait. Dad had to go to London, get the visas, book the flights. And within 36 hours, they'd gone from getting news to being at my bedside in Brisbane. Mackay. They'd flown into Brisbane, transferred up to Mackay base, which is in Queensland. And then I had to stay in Australia for a while because I wasn't strong enough to fly home. I'd lost a lot of blood. And then eventually I was ready to come home. And that was probably when the tough part happened, because when we arrived back home, it was about a month after the accident. And then mum and dad go back to work because they had to. And I was sort of left at home wondering what I was going to do. And that's where that period took me a little bit of time to get through and sort of focus, really, and work out how I was going to make something out of this. And as always with me, the first thing that came to mind was sport. And it was, rugby was my thing. And it was about, I just wanted to get back out in the park, not initially playing, but training. Part of the team, back with the squad, the social side, the banter, everything that goes with rugby was what I was looking for again. So I went back to Thurrock, started training, no aspirations of playing, but just to be out there and be part of that again. And of course, as I did it, and after a number of months of training, that's when the attention switched to playing again. And for me, that was the big moment.
Is it true you scored a hat-trick on your first return back to the field?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a winger. Always have been a winger. We used to be a centre and a winger, but eventually was a winger. And of course, nothing changed, right? So my job when I was younger, before I had my accident, my job after my accident was always to let 14 other men do the work, and then I take all the glory. So it's no different, really. They did all the work, and then they just shipped the ball to me, and I just scored the try. It was a realization, and it was a realization that although traumatic things happen to us in our lives, they don't stop us from doing the things we love, and they don't stop us from having the passions that we have. And so it was the moment I realized that even though I'd lost my arm in the car crash, it wouldn't stop me from playing the sport that I loved, and that was rugby. And I think it was probably the most important step I ever took on my road to recovery, because it was that moment I realized that things would go on.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Okay, so anyone with a slight interest in sports and fitness will have heard about the sheer amount of hard work and dedication it takes to train and commit to an Olympic and Paralympic lifestyle, of course. So as an individual that pursued that for well over a decade as a professional athlete, can you please take us through a day in the life of a Paralympian and just how much training, eating and prep you were doing for those events in Sydney and Athens?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the commitment and dedication, yeah, it's huge. It's people often talk about you make a lot of sacrifices to be a sports person. Well, I just call them life choices, because I chose the journey I went on, and there's no sacrifice involved in that. I miss stuff. I miss friends' weddings. I missed all the lads' holidays. I missed their children's parties as we got a bit older. But no one ever questioned it, and I never questioned it. It was my profession. It was my calling to be an athlete. It's what I wanted to do. But it didn't start with that level of commitment on day one. Just like with the rugby, I didn't go into athletics initially, or back into athletics initially with the aspirations of winning gold and breaking records. it was about, I'd always had a dream when I was younger about seeing if I could, I'd always dreamed of running for Great Britain, watching Seb and Steve Cram and Ovett race. So I thought, I wonder. Getting the Paralympic team is not easy. It's not one of those things because you've got disability. They're going to give you a go. It's very high level, and it's and the British team is exceptionally high level. But I just thought, I wonder, and what's the worst that will happen? So I started training. Went back to Thurrock initially. Started training at Thurrock because I thought if I don't make it or I don't like it, I'll give it a go for a few months, and the worst that will happen is I'll decide I don't like it and I'll go back to rugby fitter, faster, stronger. So that the journey started like it didn't start with the massive commitment that was needed. So I started training. I was actually working as a scuba diving instructor in Spain as I was training for my first international, which was the World Athletics Championships. So I was training and working in Spain. So not the best preparation. I came back, raced in the World Athletics Championships, came 8th in the final. And that was the point when I started to think, wow, I'm 8th in the world and I've trained, but I've not been committed. And I wonder what is achievable if I start committing fully to this. And it wasn't overnight. It was a period of time I went through. But basically, probably between 98 and 99, it was the realization that it's not about training like an athlete. It's about becoming an athlete. It's your life. It doesn't mean you can't do anything. It doesn't mean you can't have fun. But everything you do is leading you somewhere, and you've got to be mindful of what you're doing. So, and I started on that journey, and so then I made my first Paralympics, which was Sydney. I got the bronze medal in the 400 meters, and then it was off the back of that. We was already looking at the potential step up to the 8, and that cemented that for me really. That probably that was the way I was going to go. And with that change in event came another change in commitment level from me. And as I worked through the 800, sort of in 2001 in the Europeans, and then 2002 World Championships, which didn't go well for me, and then into 2003, which was my proper breakthrough year when I won the World Indoor Championships, just the commitment level grew. So I started to become more and more focused. And so by the time I was at that stage, so I joined a group of international athletes. I joined them in 1999. And a renowned coach, a guy by the name of Ao Filola. He's sadly no longer with us, but a renowned coach. My training partners were the likes of Donna Fraser, who was one of top female British 400 meter runners in the world. And I joined them and I started training with them, and I was introduced to that world of international athletics. And so we would go to America and train for 8 weeks and stay out there, live out there, train in Australia, South Africa, train with some of the best athletes from around the world. It's not about training with them, of course, it's about learning from them. For me, I didn't do the apprenticeship that some of them had done, where they come up through the ranks since they were like 14, 15. I got dropped in at the age of 24, so I had to learn. So I learned from other international athletes, and it was all able-bodied athletes I trained with. Not because I got anything against Paralympic athletes, is at the time I figured that Paralympic athletes train separately in most squads to their own squads, whereas I thought, well, if I want to learn to be the best, then I've got to learn from the best. And these guys have been around, the Olympic movement's been around for a lot longer, so learn from them. So, and that's where I trained. So, and then by the time I was fully committed, focused, international athlete, then my sessions, I would be training on average 12 to 14 sessions a week. We would be doing 2 to 3 sessions a day some days. It's not flat out training 3 times a day, and then I would train 11 months of the year. So for me, an average week could potentially look like on a Monday morning, I might go out for a very hard run, like it's called a threshold run, like running on the limits. That might be, might take you about 40 minutes that you're out there for. So you've got a period of warming up first, and then you're running hard for 20, 25, 30 minutes, and then you're cooling down at the end, or you're prepped before that, of course. Then I might do weights a little while after that. And then in the evening, I may do a recovery run. They're called recovery run. Just go out for an hour, 45 minutes, just nice and steady, tick the legs over. Tuesday in the winter might be heavy training. So it could be sort of mile reps or anything like that. It could be hill training. In the summer, it will become track training. And you gradually, as you get closer and closer to race season, you start. What happens in the winter is we do sort of high volumes, short recoveries. So we might do 20 times 200 meters on the track, or 13 times 400 meters with a minute recovery between each run. High volume of the actual distance, but very, very short recoveries. So we're not running fast. We're just working on our fitness levels. And as we get into the spring, summer, we start doing more closer to the race or broken down race distances with longer recoveries because we're running quicker. So I might be doing that. That would be on a Tuesday, and then in the evening I'd run again. Wednesday could be the threshold run, the hard run, followed by weights, followed by run in the evening. Thursday would be similar to a Tuesday, different session. So if I've done speed endurance on a Tuesday, I might be doing endurance on a Thursday, or I might be doing speed on a Thursday, depending what phase I was in. And then Friday or Saturday would potentially just be a long run. Saturday would be hill training. We never really had a day off as such. My coach didn't instill that in us. He instilled in us that we had to know our bodies inside out. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the best traits he taught us, his training group, because athletes have we have a lot of input from different people, especially now. Like, we've got physiologists, psychologists, we've got coaches, strength conditioning coaches, speed coaches, fitness coaches, you name it. We've got all these people. Whereas my coach was just everything, right? So we did access and utilize other people, but my coach was it was very central with him. And what he did teach us was, we had to know our bodies inside out. We had to know when we was getting fatigued. We had to make the choices of telling him when we wanted a day off, because why turn up to training on a Wednesday when you're supposed to train when you're absolutely exhausted? What's the point? You're liable to hurt yourself. Then on the flip side, if he'd said, oh, you have Friday off and you are feeling, really good, then you can train, right? Yeah. We don't keep training. We also mindful that we're training for 2 weeks solid without break. But it was really important, and it's something that I think, it's one of the key traits he instilled in his athletes. I think that gave us a real leading edge.
Yeah, that's some really, really interesting insight. I've always personally wanted to know what it's like. So pretty non-stop, it sounds like, pretty full on.
It is, but then it's your job, it's your profession. And yeah. I did speaking on the side, so I was still a keynote speaker. That's when my speaking profession started, while I was an athlete. But for me, it was important because it was important to have something else to focus on some days rather than just thinking about training.
Yeah.
So I'll be focusing on how I'm going to train, how I'm going to get somewhere to deliver a presentation, and then how I'm going to do my session in the evening. Or if I was working away from home, how would I? My coach was fine with me speaking. I worked, when I was an athlete, I've worked all over the world. I've worked in Malaysia, Dubai, speaking at events, and it will be, that's great, Dan, you go and do it, but there's your track session, you need to get it done.
Yeah.
So I have to find somewhere to train. But I always felt that was important to have that. And then, of course, you get the great side of it as well. Like it being in LA training for 8 weeks, just going to the track in the beautiful sunshine and doing your sessions, and or training on the Gold Coast in Australia. You get sent out for your run in the morning, and you're running down the beach front in the Gold Coast. It's just, for me, that was just the life. It's just what more. I love training. I love running. What more could you ask for to be by the ocean going out for a run?
Yeah, very, very cool. And of course, you mentioned earlier, another country with some very, very nice weather is Australia. So I want to go to 2000, Sydney, of course. A 27-year-old Danny Crates walks out to a Stadium Australia crowd, as well as millions more watching at home, to make his first appearance for the Paralympic Games for Team GB. And not only did you make the final of the T46 400, but your run saw you earn a bronze medal by crossing the line in a time of 50.39 seconds to claim your spot on the podium. So how did it feel to represent your country on parasport's biggest stage, and how long after receiving that bronze medal did you think to yourself, I'm not satisfied with this, I need that gold?
Well, actually, it was instant, and it's it was very mixed emotions for me, Sydney. So I went out there. I had the potential to win medals. It wasn't necessarily I was going to win a gold. I had the potential to win medals. I just couldn't seem to get myself in the zone. I just couldn't seem to just have that laser focus that we have at the start line. It was a little bit all over the place. All the preparation had been done. Everything had gone well. Donna had a great games before, coming fourth in the 400 meters, and she ran a lifetime best, went under 50 seconds for the first time. And that was always something that I was aiming for as well. So my training had been leading me to this, and I walked out on the track and I just couldn't seem to get it right. And then we had a false start in the race, and I can remember walking back to the start line thinking, that's lucky, because now I can focus. And I still didn't get it right. And I crossed that finish, and I didn't cross the finish line. I got to the 200 meter mark, and I knew I was in trouble. I'd gone off a little bit too slow, and I was really having to dig deep to try and get back in that race. And in a 400 meters, if you're digging deep, it's never going to end well. And I just didn't have it in the home straight to get across the line. And when I crossed that finish line, I knew instantly that on that day in Sydney, I hadn't won that bronze. I'd actually lost that gold. Now, Heath Francis, who won it, was an amazing athlete and went on to destroy the world record and just set multiple world records in the 400, the 200, and a phenomenal athlete. But he had been injured in the build up to the games, and so he wasn't, he ran well, that he wasn't at his best, and it was just, and I didn't run my best. I was off my best, so I'd let that one go, and that is tough, because you only get one chance. So you got everyone around you, idle friends, family out there, everyone around is celebrating, but deep down, you know you made mistakes, and deep down, you know those mistakes cost you the medal, the gold, and that takes a long time to recover from. It's a long process to get over that, but you have to, right? It's just one of the last hurdles, and you do have to get over it pretty quickly. And that's when the focus for Athens started. Literally, as we came back from Sydney, it was like, right, well, that's done, that's over. Let's start focusing 4 years ahead, because the same thing happens when you win anyway. Like, we come back from a games, if we lose, or we just say we lose, we don't do as well as we expected to, your coach goes, that's brilliant, right? Go and enjoy yourself for a bit, see it training in a few weeks, you start preparing for next year. If you win, your coach goes, that's brilliant, go and enjoy yourself for a few weeks, see it training, start preparing for next year. So nothing really changes. And of course, there's a lot that goes with being a gold medalist, though, and it's but that gave me the determination to focus and look and work towards Athens.
Yeah, and of course that dream for Paralympic gold didn't have to wait too long, because just 4 years later, after another 2 European golds and a World Indoor Championship gold, Athens was calling. And after you made the switch from 4 to 800 meters, you found yourself once again in a Paralympic final, wearing the famous 1404. You put on a 1 minute 57.89 seconds showing that saw you finish ahead of the rest of an incredibly established field to achieve the dream you'd been working towards for no fewer than 12 years. So can you please describe to us that feeling of elation you had when crossing the line to earn that gold medal? And also, given that the games were in Athens and the speed at which you ran, why you were never given the nickname Grease Lightning?
Yeah, I don't think that nickname would have stuck. It's, I mean, those feelings. It's very hard to explain what it's like to achieve something, because Athens was 7 years in the making, really, for me as an athlete. 7 years it took me to win the medal, from when I really started on the journey to when I actually won it. And I went to Athens with expectations on my shoulder. I'd broken the world record a few months before that, but I was always a very conscious athlete of what other people achieve, what they can achieve. And as you mentioned it, that there was, that was a lineup. And if you watch that race, that was at 600 meters, there was still 8 athletes in a pack racing at a good pace. So I knew what everyone was capable of in that race. But what we did was we had prepared for every eventuality that could potentially happen in the race. So I knew I was in the best shape, and then you just got to execute it on the day and hope that nothing goes wrong. Because of course, what can happen in the 8 as well is it's a tactical race. So you very rarely see fast 800 meters. You don't race as you would in other kinds of 800 meter races, because a championship 8 and 15 are very tactical. And there is a lot of pushing, shoving, arging, barging that goes on, people trying to box you in. We had 3 Algerians in the race. 1 had the potential to win it. 2 had a job to do, stop me. And they tried very well at times. So, and if you don't, the toughest race actually is the heats, because you've got to get in the final to have a chance, and anything can go wrong in the heats. So that's the tough one. You get into the final, then you can start thinking about how you're going to race that final. But for me, it went as I always say, I wasn't necessarily the fastest athlete out there, but what I do believe I was a good tactician of races. I had the ability to kind of be calm when I was out there, and I had the ability to control the race and get it running how I wanted it to run. For me, it was about, I had the pace to get out fast because I came from the 400 meters. A lot of them come from the 15 and the 5,000.
Yeah.
So I knew I had pace on my side. So get out fast, get to the front, let someone come on my shoulders, to use them as a barrier, and then just slow it down a bit, drop it down, not slow, but just drop the pace off a little bit so that I can conserve as much energy as I can. Because if the sprint finish comes, I know that I can out sprint them. I just need the energy to do it. So, and that's what I did. I just controlled the race. Every time somebody looked like they was moving up on the shoulders, I'll just pick the pace up a little bit, ease it back again. And then someone like Samir Nui, the Algerian, attacked with about 150 to go. And if you're really focused and in the zone within a race, you just intuitively know what's going on around you all the time. I just felt him coming, and it gave me enough time to, not panic, but just to start building up my own pace. So he never actually got in front of me. He never got that edge on me. And it worked out. But I can tell you that 50 meters home is the longest 50 meters of your life.
Yeah.
Especially when you're at the front. If you're chasing someone down, it's a different ballgame. But when you're at the front and you can't see what's going on, you can hear them, because it was less than a second behind me.
Yeah.
4 or 5 meters, if that. And that was taken out from that kick I had. But then they stayed the same distance. You can hear them coming, and you're just hoping and praying the whole way home. And then you cross the finish line and you realise you've done it. And then I had 35 friends and family out there. They went bonkers. And then that side of it starts, but it never really sinks in. It doesn't really sink in.
What a moment. Okay, so another 4 years later, while you unfortunately wouldn't see the track in Beijing due to injury, you were bestowed a huge honour as Team GB's flag bearer for the Paralympics opening ceremony. Of course, very few Brits in history have ever been offered the opportunity to do so, but after receiving medals at back-to-back Paralympics, you were duly asked, making the moment a night you'll never forget. So how did it feel to receive the offer to be flag bearer ahead of the opening ceremony? And were you ever able to fully enjoy the experience, given that injury ruled you out of competing that year?
Yeah, that was just like Sydney, mixed emotions, really. So I'd been injured for 5 months, or on and off injured for 5 months. So 2008 was really, the beginning of 2008, January, February, March was immense, in the best shape, way faster and stronger than I was in Athens 4 years previously. Wow. Everything was just looking, I can remember my coach in training sessions just shaking his head and going, he was actually adding reps into my sessions to slow me down. So he's adding stuff into sessions. He was just going, you're too fast for this time of the year. You're too fast. You've got to slow you down. Wow. And potentially where it started to go wrong, I guess. And then the injuries came, and not him adding the reps, but just the fact that my body for some reason was just really firing. And then I started getting injuries, and so I had this 5-month period that was really difficult. I eventually got back running again in July, made it onto the squad. But sadly, literally from getting on an airplane to getting off an airplane, the injuries started to plague me again. And so whilst I was in Beijing, I was given that honour of carrying the flag. At the time, I was still down to race. I still had every intention to race the race. But in the back of my mind it's just like, I'm not as fit and strong as I need to be. And I couldn't even run. I couldn't even run at the time. Wow. So the plan was, the opening ceremony was about a week before my race. The plan was to do the opening ceremony, and the next day, initially the doctors just wanted to just wrap me in cotton wool, put me on the start line and press go when the gun went, and hope for the best. And I didn't want that. I couldn't cope with that. So what we had a plan, so that we had the opening ceremony. It's amazing honour, the greatest honour. Because you're picked by your peers, to walk out with the entire British team behind you is a huge honour. Sadly, it was a little bit, because in the back of my mind was always about what was going on. It wasn't, I couldn't really engage with it. And then the very next day, we had a plan. The plan was, the Athletes Village is a hive of activity, and it's, as you can imagine, it's gossip, and everyone knows everyone's business in there. And my rivals were in the Athletes Village. You'd see them in the food halls and things like that. So the plan was, we was going to go to the deepest, darkest corner of the Athletes Village. We couldn't do it on the training tracks because someone would have seen me. So we just found a corner of the Athletes Village way out of the way, up against the fences. And the athletes village, I mean, it's huge. So you get out of the way. And we was up there, and the plan was I was just going to do some strides. They'd put some anaesthetic into my leg to just see if we could take away any pain that I felt. And I did a couple of strides. It was okay. I was just doing the last one. The doctors just said, okay, right, just do one more. We'll wind it down, and then we'll go from there. And I was just winding it down. And it was the soleus muscle just below the calf that had been causing me problems. And it just went bang. And that was it. It was over. So I had a tear, about 1.5 centimetre tear in it. That couldn't walk. They had to get a buggy to come and pick me up, take me back. And then I had sort of 24 hours. I actually stayed in the physio's room for 24 hours. They was icing it on and off every 4 hours. They stayed with me all night. Next day I was put in the MRI scanners. Then the day after that, scanned again. And then we had to make a decision. There was no way I was going to be able to race. I had a tear in my soleus. I had 5 days to recover. It wasn't going to happen. So we had to make that really tough decision. But when I carried the flag, I was still had the intention of racing. And of course, it all so less than 24 hours after having the honour was the moment when I realised it was over.
Yeah.
And that is hard and that is tough. And it's sport though, right? It's not easy, and it's sport.
Yeah, must have been tough. Okay, so of course, retirement for any athlete or sports person is incredibly challenging. Things faced both mentally and physically, like you were just showcasing there. The way the games ended in Beijing, I can imagine this for you was no different. But years before announcing your retirement, we learned that the 2012 Games would be hosted by London, which is, of course, for any British athlete, an exciting proposition. So I'd love to know, what was it that made you so determined to get back on the track and competing again after suffering that injury you just mentioned in 2008 as you approached your mid-30s? And was there going to be any chance of a 2012 Games appearance in front of your home ground?
Yeah, so 2012 was the ambition to race at 2012, 100%. People would say that, by the time I got to 2012, I would have been 39. You are at the tail end of your career. Doesn't mean it's not achievable, but you are starting to push the odds, especially injuries. Like injuries, it's not about what you can do on the race. It's about whether you can get through the training. So I still had that ambition. I trained through into 2009. My comeback race was the Paralympic World Cup in 2009, and that was for me to cement my place back in the squad. And unfortunately, I suffered a hamstring injury. And it was that's when I made the decision off the back of that. It was, I don't think I can do this anymore, and I don't think I can cope with the injuries and so I made that decision, and I got fit and strong again. And then it was the Crystal Palace Grand Prix. And then that was the race that I was going to retire at. And so as an athlete, to choose when and how you retire and to have a retirement race and have some of the best athletes from around the world that you've raced against flown in to race you is an honour. You always have that in the back of your mind. Could I have gone to 2012? I'll never know. But what I did then have is a switch of my career, and I started working for Channel 4 and media, and I worked at London 2012. Once again, like most games with me, the only one that was never bittersweet was Athens. 2012 was a little bit bittersweet. It was phenomenal to be involved in, phenomenal to work on. But of course, there was that question that what if that was me down there, like, racing on that track? But that's the question all athletes will have, right? So at some stage we make that choice and I was lucky I made the choice. I wasn't forced out by an injury that happened that meant I didn't get selected. But 2012 was, that was something to work on, and it was something it was the world opened their eyes to Paralympic sport at London 2012.
Yeah, and it's great to see you were still involved in that in some way. Okay, so obviously you were just mentioned there, since retirement, you've started doing a huge amount of both media work and motivational speaking, which is great to see, including a number of appearances at my old secondary school, as we were talking about off air just before we started recording. Everything from commentary and punditry to celebrity martyr step, sport relief, and ready, steady, cook. It's been a busy decade for you, to say the least. So I'd love to know, after doing a great deal of media work during your time as an athlete, of course, as well, what made you want to get back into the media side of things? And will we ever see a Danny Crates TED Talk in the future?
Yeah, I mean, actually, a TED Talk is something I'd love to do. Yeah, I've been speaking, conference style speaking, for 20 years now. And it's something I'm very passionate about. So I don't just treat it as for me, it's not just a sportsman talking about what he did. Actually, for me, it's a profession. I treat it as a profession. I treat my presentations just like I would a race. I prepare for them. and I analyze how I deliver it afterwards, and I'm always working how I can improve on it. And the fact that I've been doing it for 20 years and have worked all over the world says that it works. I've worked at the school you went to. I know your former head teacher, Derek People, very well. But I've always been, whilst doing corporate stuff and having those opportunities, I've always been very passionate about delivering to the next generation, which is why I started off speaking in schools, and I'm still very passionate about speaking in schools. And it's important to me that, you know, you're inspiring that next generation, and also you're giving them the tools. So my presentation has a lot of stuff in it as well, tools around goal setting, incremental gain, how we, you know, learn from setbacks, how we move on, you know, how we move on from success and move on from failure as well. Moving on from success can be difficult sometimes. So there's lots and lots in there that people take away. You know, how we utilize the athlete's mindset, that mindset of how can I be better today than I was yesterday, which is what sports people do really well, and business people tend not to so well. Business people tend to just go to work, right? Doesn't mean they're not striving for something, but it's not always the mindset of what can I do better than I did the day before, whereas that is the sports mentality, right? Broke the world record yesterday. You don't go to do the same thing the next day. You go to be better the next day. Of course, you can't achieve that every day, but that's the mindset. So that's the message and the mindset I'm always trying to get across to people, that actually you can achieve so much if you have this mindset. But I've been offered lots and lots of opportunities, MasterChef and speaking, and it does. You have to make your own opportunities. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to be prepared to work at it. You have to work at being a speaker. You have to work at the media, just like I had to work as being an athlete. And for me, when I'm a pundit for Channel 4, it's what I tend to do a lot of now, is so I sit there and I will analyse pre-race sometimes, talk about how the athlete has performed building up to it and what their chances are and what they need to do in that race. And of course, at the end of the race, we can find out if I got it right or not, and then analyse what happened in the race. And for me, it's about honesty. It's about being truly honest. Because I still talk about in my presentations, I will show the Sydney race. And when they get to the analysis at the end, it's done by a 400 hurdler, very well known 400 hurdler called John Ridgen. And he was retired and then working in TV. And he was analysing my race straight after the race, and he tore it apart. They basically said that I went off too slow, I had too much to do, my technique fell apart, and I was under pressure. And I always make a joke, and I was go at the end of it, when he's finished that, I'll come back on stage and say, "Don't you love the commentators?" But it was true, and his analysis of the race was true. And so why would you want him to say, I had a good race for Dan, he just didn't quite have the legs at the finish, but he ran a good race. He ran a really good 350 meters, because I didn't really. I ran a rubbish first 50 meters. So that's what you want. That's all an athlete wants, because the athlete knows it, right? So there's no point somebody else saying it. And that's what I try to do. And that's how I try to do it. You don't do anyone an injustice. You don't criticize them, because we make mistakes. But if they've made a mistake, you acknowledge the mistakes. They will acknowledge it. So there's no point the pundits not acknowledging. That's how I try to treat them, with that level of respect. It's their life stream to stand on podiums, to get to the Paralympic finals. So if it comes off, then we talk about how they did it. If it doesn't come off, we talk about mistakes they made and what they might need to do to improve. And of course, sometimes we get it wrong, right? I've had races where I've said, on paper, they're not in the best shape of their life, and potentially, this is going to be a tough ask for them, and then they go and win it. And that's, as a pundit, you go, that's phenomenal, right? You go, I did not call that one. But on paper, but what it showed is that person's a big championship performer. There's always a way out of it. So
yeah, I think as fans, that's all we're hoping for, is honesty from the pundits and that kind of thing. So
yeah, and inside knowledge. So it's we look at stuff people don't see sometimes. So we have the knowledge they don't know from what goes on behind the scenes, and the stuff you don't see. So the little intricacies of racing that sometimes people won't pick up, that we can. Yeah, or we should do. So we will, we might be able to explain why, as he did with me. People would have just seen me running a 400 meter race. Everyone knows that 400 meter race is a tough race. Everyone knows that you are going to start dying in the last 50 meters, but people wouldn't have seen the fact that I was just a little bit off the pace at the start. that's what the pundit does. He brings that information to people. So, well, actually, the reason he didn't win that race is because he didn't get off quick enough. Had the idiot gone off quick enough, not too fast, but just quick enough, he may have had a chance to win the medal. Doesn't mean he would have, but he may have had a better chance.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so as I do with all my guests, I'd love to end with some quick fire questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Okay. Firstly, I know it's the classic question, of course, but I thought I'd ask, have you got the gold medal with you? And if so, can we see it?
I haven't actually got it in here. You see it in a picture behind me on this montage on the wall.
Nice.
Ironically, actually, I've never had it for a virtual talk or a podcast I've done, which is stupid, really, because I actually, my gold medal is not on a wall. It's not a cabinet. It's in a work bag.
Oh, wow.
So when I was delivering live, it always went to live events with me. So it is actually lived in a bag. That's all it's ever done. So yeah, apologies for that. I should have it on me really when I do the presentation.
No worries. Glad to hear it's still at home. Okay, next up, favorite takeaway food.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I love an Indian every now and again, but I also like Chinese. I love pizza. I love food, basically. I love food.
Nice. Okay, dogs or cats?
Always been a dog man. Had dogs all my life. Sadly, don't anymore, but always had dogs.
Nice one. Okay, favorite music artist?
I love music, but I don't really follow anybody. I like soul music. I like funk. I like that style of music. But my pre-race song before I raced was Anxiety by the Black Eyed Peas.
Nice.
So it's about not fearing your enemies. And that's how the song goes. And I used to play it before I started my warm-up of every race.
Very, very cool. Okay, favorite sports film?
Oh, man. You'd expect Chariots of Fire, I guess, wouldn't you? You can't not have Chariots of Fire in there.
Yeah, nice answer. Okay, so what was the reason behind your switch from 4 to 800 meters after Sydney?
The switch was actually down to the training. So what we worked out was, so when you run the 400 meters, you potentially what you want to do is you know how fast you can run a 200 meters, right? So ideally you go through the halfway mark, the 200 meter mark, inside your fastest ability to run 200 meters. You want to be a good couple seconds inside that, really. So you've got plenty of energy left. We just could not get me physically fast enough. So I was going through the halfway mark almost flat out. So I was running the 400 meters the hard way. I was running it close to my max. I just couldn't get faster. So what we had to do was make me stronger. So my coach was putting in more strength-based training into the 400 meter work for me, so that I had that endurance that went with it. And that was working for me. So in amongst that, he just started saying, and I don't know why I did the 4, because I've always been an 8 runner when I was younger anyway. And he started saying, right, it wouldn't do you harm to do a couple 800 meters. And he put me into a couple 800 meters to race. And I did well in them straight away. I had all the training. It's not like I hadn't trained. And that was it. That was when we realized, we thought, hang on a minute. So the mentality would then be, if I go into the 800 meters, I'm a quick 400 meter runner, but I'll be going through the halfway marker way inside what I'm actually capable of. So now I'll be the one that has the extra couple seconds worth of pace left in the tank. Whereas the other athletes that I'm racing against a lot of them are coming from the 15 and the 5,000. So they're running the 8 like I would have run the 4, close to their max. Yeah. So it just worked. And I've always said that about, a position on a pitch in rugby, for example, or football or netball or cricket, or the event you do in athletics. Yes, you will have ones you want to do, but your position or your event will find you. And the 8 found me, and it just felt right. It just felt right. And that's the only way I can describe it. Training felt good. Training was hard because of the extra endurance training you have to do, but the track stuff just felt right. The races felt right. The tactics felt right. And it just worked. And it's like one of them. The minute we started looking at it, I just knew it was the right choice.
Yeah, nice stuff. Okay, can you describe that gold medal winning feeling in one word for me?
Shock.
Nice. Okay, how did you develop a passion for scuba diving, and when was the last time you dived?
I learned to scuba dive in the Barrier Reef when I was doing my year in Australia. So whenever I had any free time, I used to go scuba diving. And I fell in love with it then. So I then went back and became an instructor. I haven't dived for about 2 to 3 years now. I've got a 13-year-old son. Last time actually I dived, I think I went with him. He was an instructor and I was just tagging along behind because I can't teach anymore because I just haven't kept up my license. So yeah, I'd love to go diving with the boys. and take them diving.
Brilliant stuff. Fingers crossed, get it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could appear on any game show, what would it be?
The James Corden one. What is it on Sky? Sky One.
A League of Their Own?
League of Their Own, that's it, yeah. And before that, when I was at my prime, it would have been They Think It's All Over. I've been on A Question of Sport twice. That was a tough day in the office for me.
Nice one. Okay, which achievement means more to you? A, your Paralympic gold medal, or B, your title as the Giffords County Junior School Boys Hopping Champion in 1982?
Oh yeah, definitely the hopping champion. I mean, that was the starting point for me. That was the moment I knew greatness was ahead of me. I just didn't know how long it'd take me to get there. If you're hopping, I suppose it takes a while, right? But
yeah, just wanted to clear that one up. Okay, dream holiday destination.
I love Australia. So my ambition is to the Whitsunday Islands in Australia, off Whaley Beach, back there. Take my children and my partner Gemma there.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Okay, I know you're a big rugby fan, so keep Eddie Jones as England rugby head coach or switch it up.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one, right? So I've never been one for you know, people's heads go on the block straight away, but I think England needs to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Okay, the athlete to keep an eye on at this year's Paralympics in Tokyo. Who should we all be looking out for?
Oh man, now you're testing me. We haven't really got a lot of data at the minute to follow, which is quite tough. And Paralympics week's harder anyway, so I am going to take the old Fifth Amendment on that one. I just haven't seen what is out there yet in the world of Paralympic sport, and a lot changes in that world.
Okay, and finally, Danny, any words of advice or motivation for the people watching or listening to this that are considering getting into athletics as either amputees or non-amputees?
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't even have to be anything really. I use the mindset I had, right? What's the worst that'll happen? Give it a go. The worst that happens is you either fall in love with it or you don't. If you don't fall in love with it, you're still going to learn something from it, take it back to whatever you was doing before, or on to the next thing you do. And that's the mindset I've had with everything. It's the mindset I had with being an athlete, going up through the different distances. It was a mindset I had going back into rugby after my accident. It was the mindset I had when I was a scuba diving instructor. I didn't initially set out to become an instructor. I was on that journey. So it's just the mindset I've always had. Give it a go. What's the worst that will happen?
Love it. Love to hear it. Danny, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on my show. Where can people find you across social media? Check out your website, 1404 Performance, your autobiography, anything else you've currently got going on?
Yeah, I mean, literally, you'll see I don't do prolifically social media stuff, but there is stuff out. I've got my website, dannycraze.co.uk. I'm now a professional coach, so I coach people in personal development and performance. So, you know, I work with a lot of business and senior leadership teams and individuals on helping them on their career journeys, because the journey is the same, really. It's about starting, you know, we look at what people are aiming to achieve, and then we work out the stepping stones, the blocks they need to get there and what they need to put into place to do that. So that was no different to being an athlete. I knew what I wanted to achieve in 4 years' time. We worked out sort of year by year, race by race, how I was going to get there, and then sort of adapted things as we needed to. So that's what I do now. And so people can find that out on my website as well. And then the 1404 is a business that I've created with a business partner. And that's where we help other businesses understand what high performance looks like, you know, the building blocks to creating high performance. It's the same from what sports play. It comes from the world of sport. We've created it, but it's what we would use in sport. And but it works in business as well, because you can't just expect to, just because you run a bit, to be able to run fast. It's basically, you know, if you want to perform, whatever you're performing in, business, sport, in your home life, anything, you can't just expect to do that one thing. To do that one thing, you have to line everything else up as well, and work on other key areas to give you the strength to do that one. So it's that mindset. Yeah,
100%. I'll make sure to leave all the links down below so people can find it all and check it out. Danny, once again, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Cheers.
And there he goes, the marvellous Mr. Danny Crates, an unbelievable athlete on the track, as well as a great guy off of it too. From losing his right arm in a car accident to reaching the heights of Paralympic gold, his story is truly that of incredible inspiration, and one that I was very honoured to share with you all. Please go and check out Danny on all of his social media platforms, as well as his business, coaching services, and brilliant autobiography, Danny Boy. All the links you need are in the description of this episode. I've got many more great guests coming very soon, so stay tuned right here on Seb Talks Sports. And to take us out as usual, here's another brilliant track by All-Pro New York Giants running back, turned music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Catch you soon, guys.